It's chilling to think how one night can completely shatter your perception of friendship, leaving you not just stranded, but utterly remade. That night, 10 years ago, I learned that some people aren't just fair-weather friends. They're the kind who will leave you for dead just for a laugh. My name is Alex, and I'm 27 now, but this story, it really starts a decade ago. I was just a naive 18-year-old who genuinely believed I had real friends. You know, the kind you trust with your life, the kind who you think will always have your back. Turns out I was painfully wrong. Back in high school, I was never the golden child of our group. I wasn't the funniest, the richest, or even the most popular. I was just the nice friend. The one who never started drama. The one who always had gas money but never asked for it back. I'd drop everything if someone needed help, but somehow, I always got forgotten when plans were made. If you've ever been that friend, you know exactly how that feels in your gut. My friends were Tyler, Jake, and Brandon. They were those guys who peaked in high school, varsity football, rich parents, always getting away with anything because, you know, boys will be boys. And then there was me. I wasn't a loser, but I wasn't them. They didn't openly bully me. No, their cruelty was far more insidious. They'd invite me places only to forget, to pick me up. They'd borrow money and never return it. They'd crack jokes at my expense, always with that dismissive, "We're just messing with you," smile, as if that made it okay. And like a fool, I just let it slide. Until the night they left me stranded. It was supposed to be a fun weekend trip, a road trip to a cabin Tyler's parents owned, a few hours away. I was actually excited. I didn't get invited to things like that often, and for once, it truly felt like I was part of the group. The drive there was fine. Lots of music, dumb jokes, stopping at gas stations for snacks. Just normal road trip stuff. And then, somewhere in the middle of absolute nowhere, everything changed. "Hey, Alex," Tyler said from the driver's seat, barely suppressing a grin. "Wouldn't it be hilarious if we just left you here?" Jake and Brandon snickered. I laughed too, because obviously it was a joke, right? Wrong. The car slowed down. Before I could even process what was happening, the door flung open. "Come on, dude," Jake said, still laughing. "You always figure things out. Find your way back." Before I could argue, before I could even reach for my phone, because, of course, these jerks had made sure I wasn't holding it, they shoved me out. The door slammed shut. Tires screeched. And then they were gone. At first, I just stood there, stunned, waiting. Any second now, they'd realize this was a joke gone too far, right? Any second, they'd come back, laughing and telling me to get in. Except they didn't. Minutes passed. Then half an hour. Then an hour. And I was still standing there, in the middle of nowhere, with no phone, no money, and no clue what to do. At some point, I started walking. There wasn't much else to do. Miles of empty road stretched ahead, trees lining either side. The occasional car passed, but none stopped. Why would they? A random teenager walking alone at night on a deserted road. I probably looked like I was planning a horror movie jump scare. I don't know how long I walked before headlights appeared behind me, slowing down. A window rolled down. "Hey kid, you all right?" It was an older guy, maybe mid-40s, in a beat-up truck. He looked like the kind of person who had seen some things in life, someone with that quiet understanding in his eyes that said he wasn't going to judge. And maybe I should have been wary, but at that moment, I was too exhausted and too desperate to care. "Not really," I admitted. He ended up giving me a ride to the nearest town, where I managed to scrap together enough kindness from strangers to make a call and get home. By the time I walked through my front door, I wasn't the same person who had left the day before. Something in me changed that night. I never spoke to Tyler, Jake, or Brandon again. They didn't even try to reach out, which told me everything I needed to know about our so-called friendship. I moved on. Went to college. Built a life for myself. And then, 10 years later, out of nowhere, I got a message from Tyler. "Hey man, long time no see. Hope you're doing great. We should catch up sometime. I stared at the message for a long moment, debating whether to even respond. And then another message popped up. Also, I know this is kind of random, but we could really use your help with something. Call me. Curious, I did a little digging. Turns out, life hadn't been too kind to my old friends. Their once comfortable lives? Not so comfortable anymore. The golden boys of high school were now just regular guys, struggling like everyone else. And they needed me. Oh, this was going to be fun. I took my time before replying. Not because I was busy, no, I had plenty of free time, but because I wanted them to sweat a little. Let them wonder if I'd seen the message. Let them sit with the discomfort of waiting. Because 10 years ago, when they left me stranded in the middle of nowhere, I had waited too. I had waited for them to come back. Waited for a text saying it was just a prank. Waited for a phone call to apologize. They never sent one. So they could wait now. A full day later, I finally responded. Tyler. Wow, long time no see. Crazy to hear from you. What's up? I kept it casual, friendly, no indication that I still remembered what they had done. I wanted to see how far they'd go before they cracked. Tyler responded immediately, as if he'd been sitting by his phone, refreshing the chat like a desperate ex. Dude, it's been forever. We should totally catch up. What have you been up to? The small talk phase. He was warming me up before the ask. I decided to play along. Oh, just work stuff. Life's good. What about you, man? Things have been rough, actually. That's kind of why I reached out. There was the hook. I leaned back in my chair, smirking. Oh, what's going on? And that's when the sob story began. Apparently, life had not been kind to Tyler, Jake, and Brandon. Tyler's dad, the guy who had always bailed him out of trouble and funded his carefree lifestyle, had lost his business a few years back. Without Daddy's money, Tyler had struggled. He tried to start his own company, but it flopped. Now he was buried in debt and desperate for investors. Jake, the once charming golden boy, had a bad gambling habit. Real bad, apparently. He owed money to some people you really don't want to owe money to. And Brandon had somehow managed to tank his entire career before it even started. Got fired from multiple jobs, burned bridges left and right, and was now jobless, broke, and couch surfing. Life had come at them fast. And now, suddenly, they were reaching out to me. Funny how that works. Damn man, that's rough, I typed, pretending to be sympathetic. So, what do you need from me? I already knew the answer. They wanted money. They wanted a job hookup. They wanted a bailout. And sure enough, Tyler responded almost immediately. Well, I remember you were always really smart with money, and I saw on LinkedIn that you're doing pretty well. We were thinking maybe you could invest in our business. Just a small loan to get things off the ground. A small loan. Classic. I almost laughed out loud. These were the same guys who had abandoned me on a deserted road as a joke. Who had laughed while I stood there, helpless and humiliated. Who never once apologized, never checked in, never even acknowledged what they did. And now they wanted me to save them? Oh, this was going to be so much fun. Wow, I appreciate you thinking of me, I replied, keeping my tone light. I'd love to hear more about your business idea. Let's meet up. Tyler was thrilled. Dude, let's do it. How about this weekend? I agreed, setting the time and place. But what Tyler didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I had no intention of helping them. I had something else planned. I was going to humiliate them. I was going to expose them. And when they were at their most desperate, when they thought I was about to throw them a lifeline, I was going to rip it away. The vengeance I had waited 10 years for was finally happening, and I was going to enjoy every second of it. Saturday rolled around, and I arrived early at the restaurant. It was a nice place, one of those upscale modern spots with dim lighting, overpriced cocktails, and waiters who act like they're judging your life choices. The kind of place Tyler and his friends used to love back in the day, when their parents' money covered the bill. But today I had picked the venue, and I had done so very deliberately. I wanted them to sweat. They had no idea that I already knew everything about their situation. That I knew they were broke. That I knew they needed me more than I needed them. And most importantly, that I wasn't planning on helping them at all. I sat at the table, ordered a drink, and waited. Right on cue, they walked in. Tyler was still trying to dress like his old self, designer jacket, fancy watch, but the illusion was cracking. The jacket looked a little worn, the watch was probably fake, and there was something desperate in his smile. Jake had aged like milk. His confident, cocky posture was gone, replaced by something twitchy and paranoid. Probably the gambling debt eating away at him. Brandon looked rough. Just rough. He had always been the least put together of the group, but now he looked like he hadn't slept in days. The kind of exhaustion that only comes from making terrible life choices for years on end. I stood up, grinning like I was happy to see them. "Guys, it's been forever," I said, throwing in just the right amount of fake enthusiasm. Tyler clapped me on the back like we were best friends. "Dude, right? We were just talking about how much we missed hanging out." "Well, I bet you were." We sat down, ordered drinks, and for a few minutes, they tried to play it cool. We made small talk, reminisced about high school, laughed about old stories, except the one where they abandoned me on the side of the road like a piece of trash. That part, conveniently, left out. But I wasn't in a rush. I let them get comfortable. Let them think I was buying their little act. And then, right when I knew they were ready to make their pitch, I leaned in, all fake sincerity. "So, tell me about this business idea." Tyler practically lit up. "Oh man, it's huge. Like, we've been brainstorming this for a while, and we just need the right investor to take it to the next level." Jake nodded. "It's basically a startup that connects influencers with brand deals, but with AI integration." I almost snorted. AI integration. That was the go-to phrase for people who had no idea what they were talking about. Brandon, who had been quiet up until now, chimed in. "And like, we just need a little push. Just enough capital to really get things rolling. We're not asking for much." I folded my hands on the table, pretending to think it over. "And how much are we talking?" Tyler cleared his throat. 50,000. I stared at him, expression unreadable. Then I took a slow sip of my drink. 50,000, I repeated. Jake, misreading my reaction, jumped in. "It's a sure thing, man. You'd be getting in early, so you'd own a huge chunk of the company." Brandon nodded a little too eagerly. "And bro, it's not even about the money really. It's about helping out your friends." There it was. The guilt angle. The same guys who had left me stranded in the middle of nowhere were now playing the friendship card. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I laughed. Not a polite chuckle. A full-on amused, "You've got to be kidding me," laugh. Tyler's smile wavered. What's funny?" I leaned back in my chair, still grinning. "I mean, you guys do remember the last time we all hung out, right?" Silence. Jake shifted uncomfortably. Brandon glanced away. Tyler forced a laugh. "Dude, that was so long ago." "Yeah," I said. 10 years. "And funny enough, that was also the last time you spoke to me. Until now, of course. Now that you need something." Brandon, the weakest link, tried to salvage things. "Come on, man, that was just a prank. We were kids, you know? We didn't mean anything by it." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, so when I was standing in the middle of nowhere with no phone, no money, and no way to get home, that was just good fun?" Tyler grunted. "Dude, why are you bringing this up now? We're trying to move forward." I nodded slowly. "Yeah, you are. Because you need something." Jake, who had been silent this whole time, finally snapped. "Look, man, are you going to help us or not?" I exhaled sharply, as if I were really considering it. Then I reached into my pocket, pulled out my wallet, and laid a single $1 bill on the table. Their eyes flicked to it, confused. There? I said, smirking. Don't spend it all in one place. Tyler's face turned red. Dude, are you serious? Jake was fuming. You think this is funny? Oh, absolutely, I said. It's hilarious. You ditched me in the middle of nowhere for a joke, and now, 10 years later, you're the ones lost, desperate for someone to help you. That's poetic. Brandon, who had been trying to keep the peace, finally cracked. Man, we came to you because we thought you'd be cool about this. You don't have to be a jerk. I grinned. Oh, I do. And I'm enjoying it. Jake shoved his chair back. Come on, this is a waste of time. Tyler glared at me. You're seriously not going to help us? I picked up my drink, took a sip, and shrugged. Not my problem. And with that, I waved the waiter over. Separate checks, please. Their faces were priceless. And this was only the beginning. Tyler's jaw clenched so hard I thought he might crack a tooth. Jake looked like he wanted to throw his glass at me. And Brandon? He just stared at the dollar bill on the table as if hoping it would magically multiply. The waiter arrived, pen and notepad at the ready. Will this be all? I flashed my best smile. Yep, just separate checks, please. Tyler let out a frustrated laugh. You're unbelievable. I shrugged. Just making sure I don't accidentally cover your tab. Jake muttered something under his breath that I was pretty sure wasn't a compliment. The waiter, blissfully unaware of the tension, handed out the receipts. As expected, their total was not small. This place wasn't just expensive, it was ridiculous. A meal here could set you back a couple $100 per person. And judging by the way Brandon's face drained of color, I had a feeling none of them had planned for that. Tyler tried to play it cool. He pulled out his card, flicking it onto the table with what I could only assume was supposed to be confidence. Jake followed suit, though he looked significantly less sure of himself. Brandon, however, hesitated. I watched, thoroughly enjoying the show, as he subtly checked his banking app under the table. Then, in a move that would have been impressive if it wasn't so pathetic, he casually leaned toward Jake and muttered, Hey man, can you spot me? I'll pay you back later. Jake's eyes nearly popped out of his skull. Are you serious right now? Tyler's fake smile twitched. Dude, come on. Brandon, looking absolutely miserable, whispered, I didn't know it was going to be this much. I sat back, taking in the disaster unfolding before me. This was better than I could have planned. Tyler groaned and swiped his card so hard through the reader that I was surprised it didn't snap in half. Jake did the same, glaring at Brandon the whole time. Brandon, now owing both of them, just sat there, shrinking into himself. When the transaction was finally complete, Tyler shot me a look of pure venom. You really enjoyed that, huh? I didn't even pretend to deny it. Oh, immensely. Jake shook his head, shoving his wallet back into his pocket. Dude, you've changed. I laughed. Yeah, I did. Turns out, being abandoned in the middle of nowhere kind of forces you to grow up. Tyler scoffed. Whatever, man. Let's go. They stood up, and for a moment, I thought that was it. That they'd storm out, lick their wounds, and maybe, just maybe, finally take the hint. But no, because Tyler had one more thing to say. You know, it's funny, he mused, sliding his hands into his pockets. For all the talk about how we left you behind, looks like you're the one leaving us behind now. I tilted my head, pretending to think about it. Then, with a slow, satisfied grin, I said, Yeah, and it feels great. Tyler's nostrils flared, but he said nothing. Instead, he turned and walked out, Jake and Brandon following behind. And just like that, they were gone. I sat there for a moment, staring at the empty seats across from me. That should have been the end of it. But something told me, something deep in my gut, that this wasn't over. And I was right. Because 2 weeks later, they came crawling back. And this time, they weren't just desperate, they were begging. 2 weeks later, I got a message from Brandon, then one from Jake, Then finally Tyler. 3 separate attempts, all with the same undertone of forced casualness, like they weren't practically groveling for a spot. Hey man, long time no talk, got a minute? Dude, we should catch up, hope you're doing well. Hey, look, we might need a little help, can we talk? There it was. The real reason they were reaching out. They weren't suddenly interested in reconnecting, they needed something. And after our last little reunion at the restaurant, I had a pretty good guess what it was. I left them on read for a few days just to make them sweat. Then, just when I figured their desperation had peaked, I finally responded. What's up? Brandon was the first to bite. Look dude, we're in kind of a tough spot. Business hasn't been great and Tyler really needs some help. Can we meet up? Tyler needs help? That caught my attention. I was curious, sure, but I wasn't about to make this easy for them. Help how? This time it was Jake who responded. It's a long story, man. Just, can you meet us? We wouldn't ask if it wasn't serious. That sealed it. I had to see this for myself. Fine. Same restaurant as last time, but you're paying. Tyler responded within seconds. Done. I arrived at the restaurant to find them already waiting, looking significantly worse than they had 2 weeks ago. Tyler, usually the picture of fake confidence, looked exhausted. Brandon and Jake weren't much better, slumped in their seats like their souls had been sucked out. I sat down leisurely, unfolding my napkin while they watched me like I was their last hope. So, I said, taking my time, what's this about? Tyler sighed, rubbing his temples. Look man, we're in deep. The business took some major losses, and we need an investor. A loan. Something to help us stay afloat. I raised an eyebrow. And you're coming to me for that? I thought I was the nobody you ditched years ago. Brandon actually had the nerve to chuckle, though it was more nervous than amused. Come on man, that was a long time ago. I leaned back, crossing my arms. Hilarious prank, wasn't it? Leaving me stranded with no phone, no money, no way to get back. Man, I really saw the humor in that. Tyler gritted his teeth. Look, we were kids. We didn't think it through. Didn't think it through? You left me for dead, Tyler. My voice was calm, but I could tell it made them squirm. You laughed while you drove off, and now you're here, looking at me like I'm supposed to bail you out? Jake exhaled sharply. Look, man, you've clearly done well for yourself, and we're just asking for a chance to fix things. A chance. Interesting choice of words. I tapped my fingers on the table. And what exactly do I get out of this? Brandon looked hopeful. A partnership. We can work together. Bring you in on the business. It's a great opportunity. I cut him off with a laugh. A great opportunity? You mean your sinking ship of a company? Wow, how generous. Tyler's patience finally snapped. Are you just here to rub this in our faces, or are you actually going to help? I leaned forward, dropping my smile. Oh, I am here to rub it in. Every second of it. Because for years, you never once thought about how you left me in the middle of nowhere. Never once checked in. But now that you need something, suddenly I'm important again. I let out a slow, satisfied breath. No, I don't think so. Brandon blinked. Wait, you're saying no? I grinned. Yep. Tyler slammed his hands on the table. You're serious? As serious as you were when you sped off that night. I stood, tossing a few bills on the table for my drink. Here's the difference, though. When you left me behind, I figured out a way forward. But you... I gave them a slow, pitying shake of my head. You're still stuck in the past. And now you get to find your own way back. And with that, I walked out, leaving them just as stranded as they'd left me all those years ago.